So the Bulldogs had a really rough day in Lawrence, Kansas. They only scored once, and that was on the opening drive. While Kansas scored 14 in the first quarter, 10 in the second, and they only scored 7 points in the second half. I know the Bulldogs defender Pearson claimed that was because they, got better, started doing what they needed to do, and so forth. But I also have to wonder how much of that was just the Jayhawks not really trying anymore, all right? Because they really did not seem too interested in scoring. They could have run up the score more at the end, but chose to kneel. And a lot of the statistics back up the type of game this was. But I will go over some positives as well. Kansas was one of the best third down teams on offense last season. They only got 2 out of 10. Of course, it's also because they got a lot of they didn't get into a lot of third downs this game, so that's part of it. E.J. Warner, amazingly enough, actually had more passing yards than Daniels. He had 179. Daniels had 176. Of course, Daniels had thrown for 3 touchdowns, and Warner threw for 2 interceptions. And that really is an example of what the Bulldogs have to do better going forward. They have to win a turnover battle because this is not the type of team that is built to come back from large deficits. All right? They are a ball-controlled type of team that wants to run the ball, have long drives, run down the clock, and so forth. So when they're down, it really hurts. Now, here are some other stats that might just, in terms of first downs, Kansas had 22, Bulldogs had 13. They had twice as much rushing first downs and passing. It was pretty even, around 11 and 9. There were a couple of third penalties the refs gave them on first downs that were ticky-tack, but again, as I said in another video, when you lose 31-7, that's not the refs' fault. That's not. Rushing, Kansas had 207 yards, Bulldogs had just 37. All right? Again, you're not going to win like that. I don't care what the refs do, all right? And the attempts, Kansas had 39 yards, Bulldogs had 29. Rush average was 5.4 for Kansas, Bulldogs 1.3, excuse me. Yards gained for Kansas on rushing was 227. That says everything. Okay, I don't need to go over much more to tell you who won the game, all right? And yeah, I mentioned earlier the Bulldogs had 3 more yards passing, but the averages, Kansas didn't try as much, and their average was like 8.8 to Bulldogs 6.2. Total yards, again, Kansas had 383 yards, Bulldogs had 216. And the plays were dead even. Yards were 6.6 for the Jayhawks, Bulldogs 3.7. I can go on and on and on, and the results are pretty similar. You know what I mean? I don't have to tell you the score for you to figure out who won. I just read that box score. If you didn't need this game, didn't watch it, you didn't need that. You knew who would win. There's really not much more to say about this game, other than the obvious. Offensive line has to play better. They have to take better angles on their tackling, passing yards. They can't turn the ball over much. I said last game, if Warner continues to make mistakes, they're going to have to, change quarterbacks. And another thing about Kansas is that, if you're Fresno State, Georgia Southern watched that game, no doubt, as a team, and they're going to try and do what Kansas did. Until you stop them. That's how this game works. That's how sports work. We know what Georgia Southern's going to try and do. If you're Fresno State, that's one advantage of playing a game at an end, is that you've actually played against other competition, so you know now what you got to work on, and hopefully they have been. Last I checked, they're going to try and get 38,000 for this upcoming game against Kansas tickets sold. I don't know if they'll get there. Boy, let me just read a few more things for you about this type of game and what the Bulldogs have to do better. The drives overall, the first drive was 11.6. This first drive started with 11.6. They got a touchdown. Time possession was like 3 minutes. All right. So basically, after that drive, and the first one they went pretty good at around 3:12. Resulted in a turnover, but then the drive started stalling. This is an offense that has to chew up the clock on their own time. Third drive was only 1:35. Fourth drive was 2:54. Then there was halftime, missed field goal, and then right after halftime there was a fumble. I mean, you lost the turnover battle 3-0. Again, every single statistic shows that the Bulldogs lost this game, undoubtedly. And the competition is probably going to be better than what you find in Mountain West. I mean, Kansas could do what Arizona State did. But there's really not a lot to go over much more when you lose like this. I mean, other than try and get better, look at the score, and hope you don't have a repeat. I mean, this team could very well look at 0-3 after the first 3 games. They have to come out at least 2-2. And I'll talk about Georgia Southern in a little bit later. And talk about what the Bulldogs have to do in that game. But, Coach Entz talked about, wanting to learn from this game, taking it all in and erase it. And that's kind of the mindset you have to have. But at the same time, I really hope that Entz is not the kind of coach who is just a product of the North Dakota State machine. I really don't. All right, all Bulldog fans do. Just not a very fun week to start the year off, I'll just put it that way. So, it's all behind us now. Bulldogs lost. Got to move on. Now we face the Eagles of Georgia Southern, all right? So, see what happens.